you a question real quick. Do you feel like society is too sensitive? Recently, the show Friends, you know, that one from the 90s that we all love to watch. Yeah, that one recently came under criticism for being way too insensitive for today's culture. So in this video today, we are going to be exploring all the reasons why that may be so and if it even really matters. If you're new here, hey, what's up? My name is Tandy. Please make sure that you go ahead and subscribe and turn on that post notification bell so that you can be notified of more great content like this. Now let's get into this. Now I recently came across a reaction video by Brett Cooper about this whole Friends debacle, so to speak. And I don't know if you guys are unfamiliar with Brett Cooper, but you know, she is a Gen Zer who has some controversial opinions, so let's see what she has to say.
Welcome back to the comment section. I'm Brett Cooper. We talk a lot about Hollywood. We complain a lot about Hollywood and how it's dying and how its celebrities are chronically out of touch and elite and have their heads screwed on backwards. But every once in a while, once in a blue moon, one of them gets it right, because a broken clock is right twice a day. And this time it was Jennifer Aniston. No! But before we get into it, make sure that you like this video, subscribe to this channel if you have not already, and ring that notification bell so that you never miss a comment section or off the clock episode. All right, while doing an interview that was promoting her new movie, Murder Mystery 2, it's that movie with Adam Sandler, I guess they're doing another sequel, Jennifer Aniston dropped a whole lot of truth bombs about her sitcom Friends. She gave the typical line of how Friends could have never been made in 2023, but rather than blaming the content or the writers, which is how it usually goes, she turned around and blamed our sensitive society. This is an insider article about it. They said, Jennifer Aniston says Gen Z are going back to episodes of Friends and finding the show offensive. I don't think there was a sensitivity like there is now. Very true! Where is she wrong?
You know, and I totally agree with that. I think I can agree that society is definitely very soft nowadays, but that's not necessarily a bad thing to me either. Like, I think we can all agree that nowadays we have to think before we speak and act, right? If we don't, like, that can oftentimes trigger someone's insecurities. If you're a kind human, then that's not something that you should be striving to do, right? I think the whole point of life is to grow and be better than you were the day before. And by growing, that includes being kind to one another. So I think that there's definitely a much needed space for self-reflection and thinking about like how we make others feel with our actions and words. But I also believe that there needs to be kind of like a middle ground, so to speak, because you don't want to impose on anybody's freedom of free speech here in America. You should be able to get your point across without hurting someone else. Like, there should be a way of having free speech without the hate, you know? I don't know. Let me know what you guys think down below.
Literally nowhere. That's incredibly factual. She gets it. And this headline is everywhere. But surprisingly, she didn't get as much heat for it as I was expecting, which could be a very positive thing. But like every major entertainment news outlet was discussing it. Her exact quote said, quote, "There is a whole generation of people, kids, who are now going back to episodes of Friends and finding them offensive. There were things that were never intentional and others, well, we should have thought it through, but I don't think there was a sensitivity like there is now." And she went on and she said, "Comedy has evolved. Movies have evolved. Now it's a little tricky because you have to be very careful, which makes it really hard for comedians, because the beauty of comedy is that we make fun of ourselves and we make fun of life. You could joke about a bigot and have a laugh. That was hysterical, and it was about educating people on how ridiculous people were, and now we're not even allowed to do that. Everybody needs funny. The world needs humor. We can't take ourselves too seriously, especially in the United States. Everybody is too divided." This should be normal. Everything that she said is common sense. Comedy is about the ridiculousness. It is about making fun of the world around you. That is where comedy comes from. It is satire, and you're not allowed to do that anymore. Like, truly. Dax Shepard, who hosts his podcast, Armchair Expert, he's done many episodes about that, where he talks about being in the writer's room as a comedian in the 2020s, and you can't make a joke anymore. And rather than like pushing it all the way and then going, all right, now let's kind of walk it back, if you even push it just a little bit, all havoc breaks loose. Comedy is truly dead because everybody is too scared to make a joke that is going to offend the 1%. And the 1% not meaning the Jeff Bezoses, but the 1% of people that identify as a frog or something like that. Now, she is right that they are offended. Like, look at these tweets. I think people are more offended that there are like 3 people of color in the entire 10 seasons. Another person said, "Get her, Gen Z."
Okay, let's stop right there. Although I can understand why representation is important, especially as a Black woman, I don't think that the show Friends needed it. Hot take right there, okay? Let me explain though, before you attack me in the comments. So Friends first aired September of 1994, right? I got my notes right here. It says September 22nd to be exact. Friends was actually a stolen concept concept idea based off of the hit show Living Single. Let's talk about it, okay? A lot of you watching this video, because I know my demographic, may not even know about Living Single, so let me school you real quick. Living Single was literally the blueprint for Friends, and here's why. So Living Single was about a group of black friends, educated friends, just like the show Friends, right? It was a group of educated black friends who lived in New York. Sounds familiar. It basically like documented, you know, their experiences with one another and how they grew. They even had relationships with one another. Sounds familiar. Even like down to funny jokes. You guys can look more in depth into this. I don't want to veer too far off of this video that we're reacting to today, but even down to like the jokes, they were very similar, but just spun it in a way that was more palatable to a white audience. Actually, there's a quote. Let me go ahead and bring that one up. Queen Latifah decided to speak up about it, and shout out to, you know, the silk press goddess herself, because in this article, and I will leave it linked down below so that you guys can, you know, read the full article in its entirety. It says, some of the staff who worked on Living Single are skeptical of the originality of Friends, with Queen Latifah doubting it and Watch What Happens Live. With Queen Latifah doubting it publicly during a 2017 appearance on Andy Cohen's show, Watch What Happens Live. She was quoted as saying, it was one of those things where it was a guy called Warren Littlefield that used to run NBC, and they asked him when all the new shows came out, they said, if there's any show you could have, which one would it be? And he said, Living Single. And then next thing you know, he created Friends. I mean, it's not a coincidence, you know, like the show Living Single was such a hit. Why wouldn't he want to recreate it and basically water it down? Because in my opinion, Living Single, so much better than Friends, but that's just my hot take. The article also goes on to say, soon after Friends and Living Single were pitted against each other in a battle for the audiences, and it wasn't a fair fight. As Friends became popular, it received more promotion from NBC, while Living Single was left to flounder and slowly fade away from the limelight by Fox. In the 90s up through today, anyone can walk into a gift shop in New York City and find Friends cups, t-shirts, pins, hats, calendars, and every other form of merchandise. In contrast, merch for Living Single was nowhere to be found. So do with that information as you will. I feel like the representation just wasn't necessary for Friends because the representation was already there. Like you don't need representation when you are the blueprint. You feel me? And I think that is kind of like the black plight here in America, when you're the blueprint but don't get the recognition that you deserve for, you know, basically putting everybody on, you know. I think in a show like Friends, it was about a group of friends and their day-to-day lives and, you know, what they experience. Even in a big city like New York, like you can definitely not be around other minorities. Like even though New York is a big, you know, melting pot of different cultures, you can still kind of shelter yourself no matter where you are, whether you're in a small town or a big city like New York. Because in the same breath, where if we talk about there's no diversity in the show Friends, there really wasn't that much diversity in the show Living Single, or even the show Girlfriends that came shortly after Friends ended. I believe, Girlfriends came out September of 2000. It's just about a group of friends. Like that doesn't necessarily take away from anyone's experience. It's just the experience that's being told. So I can definitely agree with representation being needed in spaces, but I just don't think in these particular shows, either of the shows, it was just necessary for the plot of the show. Adding diversity doesn't take away or add, in my opinion, to any of these shows that we just mentioned. So I just wanted to throw that in there because I thought that comment, you know, needed more context. So let's finish seeing what else Brett has to say. By the way, and shout out to Brett Cooper for being so young and just convicted in her own beliefs and, you know, just standing down on the 10 toes. We need more people like that in society because a lot of us just tend to, you know, fold and basically get led like sheep. And honestly, if we're all going to be led like sheep, then what's the point of democracy? Just saying.
And the articles online drive her point home even more. These are from the last few years. Here's a BuzzFeed one. 21 times Friends was actually really problematic. So they literally are going through the episodes and cherry picking things that they don't like. This BuzzFeed article, it's just a listicle. I didn't like this. This made me uncomfortable. This isn't good. Get a life. Get a life. Here's another one. This is from The Independent. Friends, 10 times the classic sitcom was problematic, and my personal favorite one. NBC's Friends episode offensive to intersex youth. Intersex youth was the butt of a joke in a Thanksgiving episode, November 22nd, 2001, of NBC's popular sitcom Friends, and intersex activists and allies are talking to NBC to address how hurtful and offensive it was to us. That was in 2001.
We started a rumor.
What rumor?
We said your parents flipped a coin, decided to raise you as a girl, but you still had a hint of a penis.
You were the hermaphrodite cheerleader from Long Island?
Oh, no! Like, that's not even a funny joke. This is what I'm saying about Friends. Like, you guys are, like, people are upset and in arms over this silly show that isn't even that funny. Like, the jokes aren't even funny. What are we so upset about? I personally do not get it. I feel like nowadays it's like everybody's in the oppression Olympics, it seems. Like, you know, people just want to have something to be enraged about. Like, oh my gosh, this offended me. No, it offended me. Oh my gosh, it offended you too? Bah humbug. Like, it's ridiculous at this point that you can't even have comedy. I 100% think people's sensitivities are completely missing the point of these shows, because Friends isn't the only one that's been getting under fire. A lot of shows from the 90s and the 2000s are coming under fire because of jokes that were said back then. I mean, yeah, it was a different time, but honestly, there's healing in jokes, you know, like there's healing in comedy, and I think that we would be remiss to not acknowledge that. You feel me? Let me know your thoughts on that below. Like, because that's kind of a controversial take. Do you feel like there is room for harmful jokes? Because I wouldn't even say harmful, because like, at what point did we stop having thick skin? Like, I remember growing up and being told, like, you gotta have thick skin. You gotta have thick skin. There's the only way you're gonna make it out here in this world is if you have tough, thick skin. And like, nowadays, it's like we're all just a bunch of mush. Like, do we even have skeletons at this point? I'm concerned.
I was 1 month and 10 days old when that episode came out. And now, in 2023, you're going to NBC to talk about how offensive it was. Again, get a life, kick rocks. Do you not have anything better to do than sitting around and watching old episodes and getting offended by them? Like, seriously. Jennifer Aniston is absolutely right. People aren't even enjoying the sitcom anymore because they are just ripping it apart because they're too sensitive and they don't get that comedy is supposed to be about the ridiculousness. The comedy is supposed to push boundaries. The comedy is supposed to be funny and taken lightly. It's stupid. And now, obviously, Friends is far from the only sitcom that is being impacted by the sensitive generation. The Office probably gets more flack than any sitcom, in my opinion.
How dare you?
I mean, just last year, one of the Office showrunners admitted that The Office wouldn't have been able to be made in this modern era, except he lacked the balls or the common sense that Jennifer Aniston has in how he rationalized all of this. Here's an article about it. The Office showrunner says that Michael Scott would have been too offensive for 2022.
That's what she said.
Here's this quote. When people hear reboot, they think that it's the exact same show. I don't think that would work. I also think that the content was very much pitched for that period of time, when people weren't as sensitive to what is giving offense to people, so that you could have a boss who kept putting his foot in it. You could feel that the content was sort of helping people see things as being offensive that they might not have seen as offensive before because they were just used to it. Now, everybody's much more aware of how offensive certain things are. We're in a different place in the cycle of consciousness raising. What does that even mean? Like, he was on the right track. Like, people weren't as sensitive, but then he was trying to rationalize the comedy in The Office by saying, we were just really showing people what was offensive. No, you weren't. You were telling jokes. You were giving Steve Carell free reign to be as absurd and inappropriate as possible because you know what? That's funny.
Would you reach over and touch his thing? That's what he said, right, guys? Because of gay?
Objectively, it is funny. And now you're trying to rationalize it and pretend like you were, you know, some holier than thou showrunner raising people's consciousness. You weren't. You were telling jokes. Mindy Kaling said something similar. This was also last year, and she said The Office is so inappropriate now and couldn't be made today. Most characters would be canceled. But funnily enough, people actually got angry at her for making that statement. And they took her saying that the characters would be canceled, it couldn't be made today, as her excusing the bad behavior of the characters and deeming it appropriate while criticizing cancel culture. Like, you literally cannot win with these people. They're still gonna find a way to be angry at you. If you say you're all too sensitive, they're gonna get angry about it, just proving your point further. It's just a terrible, terrible cycle. And it's not the cycle of consciousness raising or whatever that guy wanted to say. All these people are literally proving their points that comedy and common sense cannot even exist in this kind of culture. Thankfully, some people online still persevere. One guy said, people getting offended at friends actually makes it even more funny. Time to rewatch. Another person said, you need better friends if you're offended by friends. You also need to go touch grass if you're offended by friends because it's so mild. Like, it's really not even that funny. I'm sorry. And I do love Friends.
I mean, she's right. Like, there's healing in comedy, you know, and I think it could even be argued that a lot of the conversations that we're having right here, right now, in this room, on this screen of yours, is happening because of the conversations that comedy, you know, provoked. There's healing in comedy. Comedy provokes emotion, which then sparks conversation. So I think it's kind of ridiculous to have cancel culture as a result of some comedy that may have offended somebody. Like, cancel culture to me is dumb, period. Like, I just don't believe in it. I just don't see the benefit of it. Like, on one hand, yes, of course you want to hold people accountable for their actions, their words, whatever. But at the same time, cancel culture doesn't allow room for growth. We're supposed to, again, I said this earlier in this video, we're supposed to be better than we were yesterday. So how can we evolve if cancel culture literally just shuns the person for one bad thing that they did and then holds them accountable for that forever? Yeah, they can be held accountable, but that doesn't mean that they're not allowed to evolve and grow. I mean, I know this is kind of like a little bit off topic, but think about somebody like Chris Brown, who, yeah, I mean, of course, he had a bad thing that he did when he was younger, but does that mean that he's not allowed to grow up and be better than he was back then? I don't think so. I think that it kind of negates, I don't even know how to articulate this really, but it kind of negates the punishment when you constantly want to keep your foot on someone's neck because of something that they did, you know, years ago. In my opinion, that's a form of bullying. And I think it's just so ironic how the same people who advocate for cancel culture are the ones who advocate for how bullying is detrimental to one's mental health and XYZ else. So to me, it just seems like kind of counterproductive to try to cancel someone or something over an insensitivity that they may have evoked. Like, canceling is almost, in a sense, bullying. What do you guys think? Because that's a real hot take right there. Let me know in your comments. Do you agree with that? Like, do you agree with cancel culture? Or do you feel like it doesn't allow room for growth? Let me know in a comment down below. Because, like, surely there just has to be a more productive way of holding someone accountable and teaching them a lesson while simultaneously allowing room for growth. At the end of the day, it just doesn't seem productive in my opinion. So I don't know. Let me know what you guys think about this video. Comment your thoughts down below. I would love to spark a conversation and see, you know, how do you guys feel about this? Do you feel like society is way too sensitive nowadays? Or do you feel like, no, people just need to be a lot more sensitive to marginalized communities or whatever else have you, you know? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, make sure that you give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you have not already, and turn on that post notification bell so that you can be notified of more videos just like this. I hope to see you soon. Bye.